It's Monday, September 14th. I'm talking to Peter Julien, NDP trade critic, MP for Burnaby West, New Westminster. We're talking about the Canada-Colombia trade agreement. What has happened this week that's new here in Parliament?
Well, the Conservatives have brought the agreement back first thing Monday morning. As soon as we reconvened, we now have the Canada-Colombia trade deal back on the table, obviously supported by Liberals and Conservatives. And what we're asking people across the country to do is make it very clear to their representatives, Liberals and Conservatives, that we do not believe in endorsing murder, that the ties the Ruby administration has with paramilitaries, murderous paramilitary thugs, and drug lords is simply unacceptable for a privileged trading relationship. This gives a privileged trading relationship to the Ruby administration. It's completely inappropriate given the carnage, the number of trade union leaders who are killed, human rights advocates that are killed with impunity. And so what we have is a push, concerted push by the Conservatives and Liberals to try to force this bill through, and a concerted defense by the NDP to stop it.
Liberal trade critic Scott Bryson and Bob Rae traveled to Colombia this summer, and they say they received assurances that human rights concerns and the safety of trade unionists is being addressed by the deal or by side deals. What's your response to that?
Well, they simply didn't meet with trade unionists. They didn't meet with human rights advocates. They met with a prepared list that was given to them by the Colombian government. And quite frankly, they didn't speak to anyone who could have actually told them what was going on in Colombia. I mean, I don't completely blame them in the sense that they're Liberals, and Liberals never seem to get to the bottom of any question. But when I went to Colombia, the government had a very carefully prepared plan. They had fake union leaders, people who'd either left the union movement or had been bought out or were corrupt, or had part of little employer unions that were basically set up by the companies themselves. And that was their representatives from labor. And they had human rights advocates that it turns out, as we looked at their backgrounds, were all tied to the government. So we went beyond that. We cleared that away. The NDP forced real hearings to hear from trade union leaders, real trade union leaders, real human rights activists, real environmentalists. And the message we got from them was very clearly against the agreement. So what we have is Scott Bryson and Bob Rae sipping wine with industry leaders and the elite in Bogota and these fake consultations that the Liberal Party undertook. We need to make it very clear that that is unacceptable, that they are certainly not speaking for a majority of Colombians when they talk to just a few of the very wealthy elites, and that the human rights concerns, given that the number of trade unionists killed is increasing, the number of human rights activists killed is increasing. The human rights concerns are even greater now than they were 2 years ago.
Scott Bryson cited the UNHCR, the United Nations Human Rights Committee, as saying that the human rights concerns are being addressed by the agreement. Is he correct in that?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, both the Conservatives and Liberals weren't able to access any facts at all. The reality is every reputable human rights organization on the planet has spoken out against this agreement. The reality is the labor movement in Colombia is firmly united against this agreement. That is the reality. And the documentation is there. I've provided documentation to Scott Bryson. He hasn't bothered to read it. So he's trying to make up things that simply are not true. Human rights organizations have expressed broad concerns about what's happening in Colombia. They have said they oppose this agreement. So has the labor movement in Colombia, and the people who speak out there are speaking out at great risk to their personal safety. So I am appalled how irresponsible the Liberals have been. Bob Rae and Scott Bryson are right-wingers trying to pretend that they've done their due diligence. They haven't. Neither have the Conservatives. And I think Canadians are far too smart to be taken in by the public relations campaign of a government that has direct ties with paramilitary thugs and drug lords.